Hej.
Vill du komma in sådär?
Jag gjorde ju det.
Ja, fast vänta. Ska
Ja.
jag säga? Hi everyone, this is Axel and Wilhelm.
And this week we're talking about how to get started as a freelancer. We have both been freelancing for about 4 years, and we thought we'd in this video share some experiences and insights and maybe some tips about when you're starting your business.
And especially if you want to focus on foreign reporting like we do, we're going to take you through some of the fundamental steps in starting to freelance.
So straight out of school, I was dead set on freelancing. It was the only option I knew. There is basically no jobs coming up for photographers, at least not in the news media business.
Wanting to work with foreign news, freelancing became the only way for me as well. That's the fastest and easiest way to get out there and travel and start reporting on foreign news. And I guess we thought, or at least I thought, that it would be something really, really demanding and difficult. It is sometimes, but getting support and tips and encouragement from other people in the field is always important, and especially so starting out.
Talking to colleagues and people with more experience than you. And in a way, that's what we're trying to do here, I guess. Give back a little bit.
Return the favor.
But to someone else.
Yeah, to someone else.
Part 1, get your name out there.
This means getting your first story published as a way to just have something to show for your next pitch. Every time you write someone trying to sell a story, that they will want to know, what have you done before? So having just something to show them shows not just your experience, but it's a work sample. It shows you can write or photograph. Getting that first story sold without any previous experience is easier said than done.
When they don't know you, they don't know what you've done before, it's hard to sell something in advance. Especially as a photographer, like you have to take a risk and go somewhere or do that first work without an assignment most of the time. That's my experience at least. To actually have a body of work or a story to try to sell. Especially with photographs, it's so easy for an editor to see then if it's something you want or not. It's like on or off with the pictures.
I think my first year working abroad in Southeast Asia, almost all of the stories I made, the editor wanted to see the piece first. They would be like, yeah, this sounds like an interesting story, but we don't know you, write it to us and then we'll decide. And that's a risk you sometimes have to take. It's not fun when they turn it down and you've already done the work, but it's sort of something you have to swallow, I guess.
And the way to get that kind of work out there is turning to smaller outlets.
Small outlet.
So you, for example, were writing for
really obscure, small leftist magazines. They would come out every month. I could write long pieces for them. I could sort of really try my wings as a feature story writer.
I guess the downside of working for those magazines is they usually don't pay that well.
Yeah, they have lousy pay.
You get to do the work and you get good examples of your work.
It's something that you can still show when you're pitching a bigger media organization. I did this piece in Mini News.
So that takes us to the next part, get out there. I mean, you can work at your home base as well, but it's important to actually go out there and work and do some kind of story to bring back. My first big project I did while I was still in school. After school, I went on another trip to complement the work I've already done, and then I could sell it and get published. Usually in school you get the time you need to do something properly, which you don't always have the money for when you're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
So it's always an investment to do the first couple of stories.
Yeah, doing the first stories, my goal would be to break even, to not come home with a loss. That wasn't always how it turned out, meaning I sometimes came home with a loss.
I mean, look around in your network as well. Where do you have contacts? They probably have interesting stories.
And when you're getting started, when you're doing these first stories, you're going to obviously start to locate what are your possible outlets, where can you pitch. As you do this, start compiling a list as you go along with all the kinds of magazines you could pitch, all newspapers, the editors who are there, what's their position. Keep hassling them to pick up these stories. You have to be a bit boring with them and keep pressuring them.
Always be pitching.
ABP. You're going to have to make sure they get bored of you, of all your emails. But it's going to pay off in the long run. Persistence is key, especially in the beginning, because you're going to get a lot of no's.
That's not only in the beginning, though.
No, yeah, true. Yeah, it's never going away, but it's going to be it might be a shock in the beginning. And you might think that I'm not made up for this, and this is obviously not my thing. But we can tell you from experience that just keeps happening. It's not a sign of failure.
As we said in a previous episode, we had 3 stories published.
The last one, the Burma trip we made?
We must have emailed 25.
Yeah, 30 easily.
30.
Yeah.
It's a small percentage that gets back to you, and then an even smaller percentage that actually wants something.
And they get hundreds of pitches every day. So if they're not writing back, it's usually just because they haven't seen the email. Right, don't go to their homes.
Don't call them in the night, send text messages or...
Yeah.
You got to be professional still. Don't spam the inbox with images. Send a link to images to a portfolio or something. Part two.
Once you got your first story out and you found a couple of clients that you can come back to, freelancing is a lot about making ends meet. As we said, some of these magazines or outlets that you work with in the beginning will pay less than they should.
It's smart to try to sell the same story then to different clients. You can't give someone exclusive rights.
But in the beginning, making use of either like the backpacking infrastructure that is there in some countries, like you can stay in cheap hostels to keep costs down. When I started working from the Balkans in Albania, also Kosovo, I would use couch surfing to stay for free. You know, that was a really good way of not just getting free accommodation, but also finding contacts. Someone who knew the place you were in. I could ask those people for contacts, for even help with translating. I haven't used it in a while, but if it's still out there, then try that as a way to keep costs down.
You have a paper with money on it.
So yeah, this is just to illustrate the sort of keeping costs down thing.
And we mentioned working for different outlets at the same time. That's the next thing. Don't put all eggs in one basket, which also goes for working at home. It is quite hard to survive on only foreign reporting, for example. It's expensive and it pays quite bad compared to working from home. So in between our trips, we have other work as well. I mean, it's still journalism, I'm still a photographer, but I work for different clients and I do different kinds of work. So I work a lot for a news agency in Sweden where I did my internship, so I still have contact with them.
But you do freelance work for them? So
I'm freelancing for them, working with different organizations or companies at home can be a thing. I have done some commercial portraits, like a lawyer firm or a furniture store I've done portraits for. Then you can probably, most of the time you can charge, or you should at least charge commercial rates, which is quite high, and that can actually help you survive for a bit longer.
These kinds of gigs are really important. Like when I first moved to Bangkok to start full-time freelancing from Asia, I would work doing layout for a folk music magazine. So they would send me their material, their pictures and text, and I would put it together into a magazine. That would give me 4 times a year, that would give me a steady, reliable income. I guess it's just a matter of not having to start from zero every month, because that can be a real mental challenge. And I mean, these gigs it's not the kind of stuff that you dreamt about doing. I didn't get into journalism to do layout for folk music magazines. You have to look at it as things you need to do to make sure that money keeps coming in, because without that, it only takes like one failed trip to make you broke, and then there goes your motivation and your whole momentum.
So in between trips, try to get some kind of work at home and get the money still flowing. So maybe the profit you made from the trip, you can actually reinvest in another trip.
So that's about it. That's all the advice we have. I mean, this is an uncertain line of work. So I guess you just have to learn to embrace that uncertainty. And once you get comfortable with that uncertainty, it becomes part of the fun. It's part of what I enjoy about this work, that it is up and down.
And the variety of work you get to do. If you have any more questions, please comment below. If you have any advice, comment below as well.
And if you like this video, please consider giving it one of these. And also don't forget to subscribe. Right.
But otherwise, you know the schedule. You know the schedule? Schedule.
Yeah, but what's the schedule?
Every Monday.
Every Monday. Yeah, stay tuned for the next one. Good night.
Where's the good night paper?
I dropped it on the floor in the last take. Oh.